Ow. Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at a new wonder, A Woman Never Vexed by William Rowley, and we potentially also with Thomas Heywood as well. So that is an attribution that some people make to certain parts of the play. The fun game for the room now is, of course, to try and find an alternative title, because I don't think that's a seller, because at the moment the title is the biggest problem I've got with this play, but who knows, it's the final session, so it could all turn to ash in our hands, as is not unknown in a comedy. But so far it's been terribly amiable, so I'm hopeful that nice things will come to those who have waited. Reading today, Stephen and Montfort is...
Mark in South Bend, Indiana.
Reading the part of wife is...
Lois in London.
Stepping in, potentially only for a little while, but maybe for longer, to read Keeper and Speedwell is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm here with my grey wall again.
Yay! Reading Robert and Arundel is...
Rachel in Canada.
Reading Richard is...
Donald in Northamptonshire.
Reading Mistress and Jane today is...
Sarah in The Hague.
Reading Clown and King is...
Aliki in Athens.
Reading Old Foster is...
Francis Cox, up the road from Sarah in Amsterdam.
And reading Lambskin and Brewen today is... Muted at present.
Sorry about that. John in St. Petersburg, Russia.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and generally keeping us moving forward as we go into the Act 4, Scene 2, as we find out where we're going. Act 4, Scene 2, enter Old Foster, Richard, his factor, and the Keeper of Ludgate.
Good sir, resolve not thus. Return again. Your debts are not so great that you should yield your body thus to prison unconstrained.
I will not trust the iron hearts of men. My credit's lost. My wealth the sea has swallowed, racked at my door, even in the mouth of the Thames. Oh, my misfortune! Never man like me was so thrown down and cast to misery.
Dear sir, be patient.
I prithee get thee gone, and with thy diligence assist thy mistress to keep that little left to help herself, whilst here in Ludgate I secure my body from writs, arrests, and executions, which, well I know, my cruel creditors will thunder on me. Go, get thee gone. If what is left they'll take, do thou agree. If not, I am resolved here to stay and die.
I'll do my best, sir, to procure your peace.
And exit Richard.
Do so. Come, sir, I yield myself your prisoner. You are the keeper of this Ludgate?
Yes, sir. Your name's registered amongst the prisoners.
So, I have seen the fair outside of this tomb before. This goodly apple has a rotten core.
As all prisons have, sir.
I prithee, bar me of no privilege due to a free citizen. Thou knowst me well?
Yes, Master Foster, and I sorrow for your losses, yet doubt not but your son and brother.
Oh, speak not of them. Do not kiss and kill me. I have no son nor brother that esteems me, and I forever hate their memory. Prithee, no more. I am come sick into a bad inn, and look for worse attendance. I have taken a surfeit of misfortunes, and here must swallow pills with poison to recure me. I am sea-sick, sir, and heave my hands to heaven. Ne'er to so low an ebb was Foster driven.
There be some fees to pay, sir, at your coming in.
So, if this old walnut tree, after all this cudgelling, have but one cluster left, thou shalt have that too. If not, Take off these leaves that cover me, pull off these white locks, rend them from my head, and let them in my woes be buried.
Alas, sir, this house is poor.
I think no less, for rich men seldom meet with such distress. Well, well, what book must I read over now? What servile oar must I be tied to here, slave-like, to tug within this Christian galley?
Sir, being the youngest prisoner in the house, you must beg at the iron grate above, as others do, for your relief and theirs.
For a beggar to beg, sir, is no shame, and for the iron grate it bears an emblem of iron-hearted creditors that force men lie in loathsome prisons thus to starve and to die.
Enter Robert.
Who would you speak with, sir? Oh, cry you mercy to his son. I'll leave them.
Exit keeper.
Oh, torment to my soul! What makest thou here? Cannot the picture of my misery be drawn and hung out to the eyes of men, but thou must come to scorn and laugh at it?
Dear sir, I come to thrust my back under your load, to make the burden lighter.
Hence from my sight, dissembling villain, go! Thine uncle sends defiance to my woe, and thou must bring it. Hence, thou basilisk, that kill'st me with thine eyes. Nay, never kneel.
For indeed, Robert is kneeling again.
These scornful mocks more than my woes, I feel.
Alas, I mock ye not, but come in love and natural duty, sir, to beg your blessing, and for mine uncle.
Him and thee I curse. I'll starve ere I eat bread brought from his purse, or from thy hand. Out, villain! Tell that cur, thy barking uncle, that I lie not here upon my bed of riot as he did, covered with all the villainies which man had ever woven. Tell him I lie not so. It was the hand of heaven struck me thus low, and I do thank it. Get thee gone, I say, or I shall curse thee, strike thee, prithee away. Or if thou'lt laugh thy fill at my poor state, then stay and listen to the prison grate, and hear thy father, an old wretched man, that yesterday had thousands, beg and cry to get a penny. Oh, my misery!
Dear sir, for pity, hear me.
Upon my curse I charge no nearer come. I'll be no father to so vile a son.
Exit old Foster.
Oh, my abortive fate! Why for my good am I thus paid with hate? From this sad place of Ludgate here I freed an uncle, and I lost a father for it. Now is my father here, whom if I succor, I then must lose my uncle's love and favour. My father once being rich, and uncle poor, I him relieving, was thrust forth out of door, baffled, reviled, and disinherited. Now mine own father here must beg for bread, mine uncle being rich. And yet, if I feed him, myself must beg. Oh, misery, how bitter is thy taste! Yet I will drink the strongest poison. Fret with what mischief can, I'll feed my father. Though, like the pelican, I peck my own breast for him.
And old Foster. Well, we'll pause there for a moment, just as we take stock. So, there's an interesting staging thing going on here about this place in the prison for you to beg through, and how that will be structured. Because in a moment it says old Foster appears above at the grate. So, where this grate is structurally centered on the stage within the logic of the stage is an interesting question, and creates questions about how this scene will now play out going forward, but we're not quite there yet, so put a pin in that for the moment. But yeah, we're back into this situation that Robert has been told he mustn't help his father, and he turns up. Of course, his father's being a bit, he hasn't, he's I think perhaps still in a bit self-pity mode here, isn't he? And Yeah, which I think fits his character perfectly well. It's not like this is sort of unexpected, but it is interesting where this scene is setting us up for where we're potentially going next. Robert does seem to like kneeling a lot, so it's not like he doesn't have an idea of how to maybe assuage his father's moods. Do you get the impression he did a lot of kneeling as a child? Please don't be angry, Daddy. Thoughts from the room, Lois.
Well, children were supposed to kneel and ask their parents' blessing on a kind of regular basis. So, it's not that he's really not being all that unusual. Just he's the only character in the play who seems to keep being in this situation. But theoretically, anybody could be.
And I do quite like the way the keeper just quickly just goes, "Oh God, it's his son. I'm getting out of it." I do like that. Eric.
I just like to think that the keeper has like a clipboard with like, oh yeah, you're registered here. I can see your name here, and you have to pay however, like 25 cents or whatever, or pennies or whatever it was. He strikes me as a more of an admin person than an actual enforcer of law and order kind of thing. I don't know, maybe that's just me.
I mean, yeah, he seems genuinely sorry for him. It's obviously not a great day. And being the youngest prisoner in the house, I don't think that means literally that he's younger than anyone else, but in the fact that the latest person, you have to go through this process that all the new inmates do. You get first stab at the grate, which, I mean, I don't know how historically accurate that is. I mean, Ludgate is an ancient structure. I don't know how long it functioned as a prison, and how long this particular method existed for. Remember, this play is from technically set in the 13th century, but let's not pretend that it really is. So all sorts of interesting things. Anyway, Lois.
Yeah, just about. I think they did hang a basket out the window. This was, I'm talking, of course, about Jacobean times, not whatever this period is, but. And people could just throw scraps of leftover food and so on in there for the prisoners. And there's a reference, I think, in The Alchemist to somebody getting in trouble in prison for lying too heavy on the basket, whatever that means. But maybe trying to get into it before it got distributed to everybody else. I mean, this wouldn't have been really great food, but I suppose it was better than nothing.
Yeah. It seems more cash in hand, this system.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue the scene as we sort of got back into the flow of things. So Robert was left alone, and old Foster appears above at the grate, a box hanging down.
Bread, 1 penny to buy a loaf of bread for the tender mercy.
Oh me, my shame! I know that voice full well. I'll help thy wants, although thou curse me still.
Bread, some Christian man send back your charity to a number of poor prisoners. 1 penny for the tender mercy.
Robert puts in money.
The hand of heaven reward you, gentle sir. Never may you want, never feel misery. Let blessings in unnumbered measure grow and fall upon your head where'er you go.
Oh, happy comfort! Curses to the ground first struck me. Now with blessings I am crowned.
Bread for the tender mercy. 1 penny for a loaf of bread.
I'll buy more blessings. Take thou all my store. I'll keep no coin and see my father poor.
Puts in more money.
Good angels guard you, sir. My prayers shall be that heaven may bless you for this charity.
If he knew me, sure he would not say so. Yet I have comfort if by any means I get a blessing from my father's hands. How cheap are good prayers! A poor penny buys that which man may, that by which man up in a minute flies and mounts to heaven.
Enter Stephen.
Oh me, mine uncle sees me.
Now, sir, what make you here so near the prison?
I was going, sir, to buy meat for a poor bird I have that sits so sadly in the cage of late. I think he'll die for sorrow.
So, sir, your pity will not quit your pains. I fear me I shall find that bird to be that churlish wretch your father that has taken shelter here in Ludgate. Go to, sir, urge me not, you had best. I have given you warning. Fawn not upon him, nor come not near him, if you'll have my love.
Las, sir, that lamb were most unnatural that should hate the dam.
Lamb me no lamb, sir.
Good uncle, alas, you know when you lay here I succored you, so let me help him.
Yes, as he did me, to laugh and triumph at my misery. You freed me with his gold, but 'gainst his will. For him, I might have rotted and lain still. So shall he now.
Alack the day.
If him thou pity, 'tis thine own decay.
Bread, bread, some charitable man remember the poor prisoners. Bread for the tender mercy, 1 penny.
Oh, listen, uncle, that's my poor father's voice.
There let him howl. Get you gone, and come not near him.
Oh, my soul, what tortures dost thou feel? Earth ne'er shall find a son so true, yet forced to be unkind.
Exit Robert.
Well, go thy ways, thou pattern of true virtue. My heart is full. I could e'en weep, and much ado I had to forbear, to hear a brother begging in a jail, that but erewhile spread up a lofty sail as proudly as the best. Ah, 'twere a sin unpardonable in me should I not succor him. Yes, I will do it. Yet closely it shall be done, and he not know from whence his comforts come. What ho, keeper there! A word, I pray.
Enter Keeper.
What's your pleasure, sir?
What's he that at the gate there begged even now?
One Master Foster, a decayed citizen, new come in. Cry you mercy, sir. You know him better than myself, I think.
I should do knew he me as I would know him. Prithee, take him from the grate, and that no more he stand to beg. There is £10 to pay his score, and take off all his wants. If he demand who sends it, tell him 'tis thine own free hand to lend him money.
Well, sir, I shall.
Spend what he will, my purse shall pay it all. At his parting hence, the poorest prisoner and all free citizens that live in Ludgate shall bless his coming in. I'll for his sake do something now that, whilst this city stands, shall keep the Foster's name engraven so high as no black storm shall cloud their memory.
Heaven bless your purpose, sir.
And exit. So, you know, there's a lot of pride in this family, but deep down they do the right thing in the end, don't they? But there's still this prideful front. There's still this thing that they just can't quite just say, shall I just pay for things? And it's like, but maybe there's an element of Stephen knows his brother wouldn't accept charity in this situation as well. So but there is still also, he just kind of, maybe he is sort of slightly enjoying the fact that his brother's dead, but then the reality of it hits him on some level. So there's all sorts of questions. We were talking about whether this was a deliberate test of Robert. I'm not sure it is a deliberate test, but it may still function as a test in that sense. I don't think Stephen's thought that far ahead, but I could be wrong. Thoughts from the room? John, then Aliki.
Well, I mean, to the extent that we sort of have this Job and anti-Job sort of situation, where you get all the misfortunes of the world or all the fortunes of the world. I mean, I sort of had the sense that old Foster was not so bad a guy, and he was. I mean, I think you get hints of that in the dialogue at the beginning, where he's sort of made worse by having it's the influence of the misfortune of his misfortune bewitched wife. Whereas, and if that's true, then maybe what's happening here to a certain extent is that Stephen is becoming he seemed genuinely kind of bad at first. I mean, there was not a lot redeemable in his dialogue at the beginning, and for him to do this now, it also seems like perhaps it's the effect of the sort of magic bewitched positive aspect of his wife coming off to change his nature into something more like what his brother once was.
Yeah, I don't think we got that sense reading it in terms of reading it as a play. And because in a sense they keep talking about being lucky and unlucky, and we have a couple of demonstrations of it. But actually, I'm not sure anyone really is actually. I'm not sure there is a genuine magical curse. I think a lot of it's just coincidence. But that doesn't mean you couldn't make it more that way. We were discussing that in the first session when I was talking about,
the fish is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, but the fish is, but that's it, really. That's the only major coincidence. Everything else is sort of, why is the wife vexed, the mistress Foster vexed? Well, because there's a son who keeps giving money to a profligate. There isn't much unluck until the boat sinks.
Well, actually, at the beginning, when you said that she was unlucky, her story isn't that she became unlucky when she married. Her story is that she was unlucky from birth, and she has a whole speech about that.
Yeah, but we're not. There isn't really a demonstration
but they're all within,
of that.
Right, they're all the unluck before that is more or less within the bounds of what could, in theory, each thing could happen by itself. They're not supernatural seeming, except the fish.
Aliki.
So 2 things. One is we now have a better idea of what's going on with the grate. I think it's lower down so that Robert passing by only would be they're stretching out a hand or that something like that. How you'd work that exactly would be fun and interesting. And then I wanted to note that in the last 3.5 lines, we have an indication of another origin of something important in London story. That before we had the origin of a St. Mary's hospital, and now something is going to be done for prisoners.
Yeah, an important detail that yes, I'm sure the good burghers of London will be delighted to hear about as their origin story. Donald.
A question: do we know where the play was first performed? Was it an outdoor or an indoor theatre? I was just thinking of the grate and the staging issues surrounding.
I'm fairly certain it's difficult because it's got a long dating range. I think the title page mentioned His Majesty's Players, so it might be a King's Men at the Globe by the time it's printed. But whether that is this is the problem, is it's got an absolutely massive dating range, which means it could dance all over the shop. So that's not necessarily an absolute. It feels like an outdoor playhouse to me.
Yeah.
But
perhaps the grate is just the balcony through the slats.
The important structural point about it is that they cannot see each other. That it is a voice and maybe a limb, and the rather than a line of sight, so that they can interact without interacting, which is important. Lois.
It could be the trap door.
Yeah.
I would think the balcony would make sense in the sense that you're talking about a basket. You're on a balcony, you could lower the basket.
Yeah.
And raise the basket.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And stage direction did say appears above.
Yeah.
They do have windows, don't they? The side of the stage. I mean, you could have a dangling from a window.
And I say, if it's one of those sort of and again, I think it's a question for the mechanics of your own venue now. Is this question of what is the most strategic way of doing this so that you can still hear old Foster from behind the grate without, and maybe even see him. The important thing is he cannot see them, and they to a degree can't see him at that point anyway. Eric, were you waving?
Yeah, I was just doing a sort of. I was basically doing an image search, but then I ended up finding Wikipedia, so I don't know if that helps. They basically say that it was kind of the gate was rebuilt in about 1450 by a man called Foster, who at one time was lodged in the debtor's prison over the gate. So it would have. This is actually quite interesting. Well, not historically. I mean, I obviously it's kind of that thing of yeah. And he eventually became Sir Stephen Foster, Lord Mayor of London, which is even more interesting.
Yes, and normally I'd stop you from doing spoilers or anything like that. But in this context, if we're thinking the original audience probably would know some of this, the knowledge of this kind of sort of local history might be sort of embedded in possibly even how the play was sold. So in that sense, it's probably quite. This is useful information to try and decide do we bother imparting this to a modern audience or not? Because this is where this is a history play. This is a history play, people. I keep telling you it is. I know the king hasn't turned up yet, but it is based on something from Stowe. So there are historical details, even if a lot of it's made up. Just in the way that Dick Whittington, most of it's made up. He didn't have a cat.
How do you know he didn't have a cat?
Because the cat mysteriously appears later in the narrative, considerably after the existence of Dick Whittington. If Tracy was in the room, I would pass you over to Tracy Hill, who has could do you chapter and verse on at what point the cat turns up. Anyway, I'll go back to Eric and then Lois.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's interesting because, like, I think we mentioned that there are suspicions that Heywood wrote part of this, right? So, and
can you guess which bits people think he wrote?
All of it. No, I'm kidding. But I'm just intrigued because like in almost all the Lord Mayor shows that I can remember, we've got like stuff that is kind of yes, and that mayor of London, and then there's like this huge list of names of previous mayors of London. So obviously, this would have been common knowledge, as you said.
Yes, because people are constantly reminding you who previous Lord Mayors were and what institutions they founded every single year, and not just at Lord Mayor shows. It will turn up in other events that the livery companies are sponsoring. So this is knowledge that a reasonably large percentage of the audience would actually get, as well as the reading audience who might have read it in history books and things like that. So, it's absolutely common knowledge on some level. Though, to be honest, having done quite a few Lord Mayor shows, I don't remember Foster. Anyway, Lois.
Yeah, so that would fit in with the very popular idea that the wilder your youth is, the better you're going to be later on when you reform. The other thing that struck me was just this rather simple-minded way that Robert is so glad to get his father's blessing, even though his father doesn't know he's blessing him. I mean, there's an extraordinary kind of literal-mindedness about this, which is, I think, generally true of the religious attitude through this play. It strikes me as a very kind of simple-minded version of Christianity, but it's all over the place.
But and again, that sort of fits with these origin stories of working folk. That there's often that parallel does seem to turn up quite a lot, and a certain simplicity about these almost folk myths. That there's somewhere in between history and folk myth. John.
Yeah, I mean, are they working folk? This is more like they seem like rather pretty much like in the realm of wealthy merchant class, right? Which the first thing I was thinking is how remarkably little nobility there is in this play, and apparently you gather for the cast list they're probably going to show up at the end, which is again makes their absence and the rest of it I think even clearer. When you just said that this idea that the wilder you were in your youth, the better off you're likely to end up. Actually, the gaming house keeper actually said that, right? That's he actually gave that story, right? So that's I think it's a pretty good idea that's in here.
Though in the context of the gaming house, that's not there as a moral.
Right. Oh, well, there's the thing is that was my take is that Robert seems like he's essentially like the next generation. He almost acts like nobility in a house of merchants. That's what I assume I get. He's like he has this his behavior. If you put it in a medieval, as the behavior of a medieval knight in a sense, would seem entirely natural. Strange.
And and to add a little historical element to this, which would fit reasonably well. These are people working with selling cloth, and in the medieval time, the wool trade was incredibly successful. So you can absolutely understand why these people, as merchants working with cloth, would be incredibly successful. Because they're not just talking about exports; they're talking about imports as well, which is where it gets a little bit confusing. But anyway, we will move forward and find out what's going to happen in the rest of Act 4. Act 4, Scene 3. Enter Stephen's wife and her sister, old Foster's wife.
Sister, there's no way to make sorrow light but in the noble bearing. Be content. Blows given from heaven are our due punishment. All shipwrecks are no drownings. You see buildings made fairer from their ruins. He that I married, the brother to your husband, lay, on the same bed of misery, yet now he's ranked with the best citizens.
You were born to wealth and happiness, I to want and scorn.
Come, I will work, my husband. Stay this grief. The longest sorrow finds at last relief.
Enter Clown.
Now, sir, your business?
Mistress, here are 2 creatures scarce able to make one man desire to speak with you.
What are they? Know their names.
Nay, I know that already, though one is a thing that was plucked into the world by the head and shoulders to be wondered at, and 'tis called a knight. The other is a coach horse of the same overridden race, and that's a foolish gentleman.
Oh, they are my old debtors, Speedwell and Lambskin. Go, call them in, and my gentle sister, comfort yourself and my imprisoned brother, to whom commend me. Give to him this gold. What good I can do for him, what good I can, I'll do for him. Be bold.
May heavenly blessings guard you from all ill. Never was woman vexed as I am still.
Exit Mistress Foster. Enter Speedwell and Lambskin.
Now, good Sir Godfrey and Master Innocent.
I put my innocent case in your hands, mistress, as a simple country client thrust his money into a lawyer's who stands upon no great terms to take it.
We come about the old business, the sickness of the purse, lady.
And they'd be loath to keep their beds in the counter, mistress. They are afraid of sergeants. Master Lambskin knows that mace is a binder.
No, truly, it makes me loose, for I never smell it, though it be 2 streets off, but it gives me a stool presently.
Aye, you have been a loose liver always. 'Tis time to look to you.
Fair lady, we are your debtors and owe you money. Experience tells us that our bonds are forfeit, for which your husband threatened to arrest us. My shoulders love no such clappings. I love tobacco, but I would be loath to drink in Wood Street pipes. Some money we will pay ere we go hence. I speak, you see, with grave experience.
I know it well, sir.
Had not your husband, when he went about fowling for the alderman's daughter, driven away the bird, we might have bidden you a better breakfast. But now you must take what we can set before you.
I am content to do so. You shall find nor me nor my husband carry a griping mind.
Enter Robert.
Now, coz, where's your uncle?
He's hard at hand. I saw him coming with the Lord Mayor and alderman.
Zoons! Knight, if the mayor come, the shoulder clappers are not far off.
Oh, fear not. I'll be your surety, sir.
Do you not smell poultry ware, Sir Godfrey?
Most horribly. I'll not endure the scent on it.
Upon my trust, none here shall do you wrong. What is his business with the alderman?
About the entertainment of the king that means to visit London.
Saw you your sad father?
I did. Would I might never see man more, since he so hates my sight. The prison door which gapes for comers in, that mouth of hell, shut me out with a churlish cold farewell. After my father's most unnatural part was played on misery's stage, mine uncle comes in thunder on me, threatening with black storms to nail me to the earth if I relieved my poor old father.
Here's my master now, gentlemen.
Enter Stephen, yes.
Ah, gentlemen, you're both welcome. Have you paid this money on your bonds yet?
Not yet, sir, but here they come, like honest gentlemen, to take some order for it. Good sweetheart, shall it be put to me?
Do as you please. In all thy deeds thou art governed with good stars. Therefore, if thou criest peace, I'll not raise wars. Even order it how thou wilt.
I thank ye, sir. Then tell me, gentlemen, what present money can you pay?
£200 we can lay down.
And take up 7 times as much if we knew where to get it. But there's our lamentable case, mistress. If you strip us any nearer, you'll strip the skin and all, I assure you.
We'll shear no sheep so close.
No sheep, forsooth, but a poor innocent lambskin.
You should be a calf by your white face.
All your £2,000, gentlemen, we quit for your 200. Go, pay the money to my coz, and receive your 2 bonds cancelled. Say, sir, are ye content?
Wife, I must stand the arbitrament. Go, cousin, receive their money, and, sirrah, make them drink.
I'll make them drink if they will. Come, gallants, empty your bags, and I'll bombast your bellies. This lean gentleman looks as if he had no lining in his guts. I could take him by the leg and hurl him into the doghouse.
And exit Robert, Speedwell, Lambskin, and Clown.
How now, sweet wife? What art thou musing on?
I must come wooing to you, sir.
A wooing, sweet, for what?
For your brother. Oh, 'tis unmeet for souls framed by one square to grow uneven. 'Tis like a war mongst the great lights of heaven. One cannot lose his beauty, but the other suffers eclipse. So, brother against brother.
Wouldst have me kiss him that would kill me?
Would you kill a man lying at your feet? Do good for ill.
Thy songs are angels' tunes, and on thy wings I'll fly with thee to heaven. Thou speak'st as I would have thee. His debts I have justly weighed, and find them light.
Easier then, ting off.
Thou sayest most right. But I of purpose keep aloof, to try my kinsman, whom I spied most dolefully hovering about the grate, where his father cried with piteous voice for bread. Yet did I chide, and railed against the boy. But my heart says, howe'er my tongue, it was drowned in tears to see such goodness in a son.
Such wheels in children's bosoms seldom run.
I'll lay a wager, wife, that this £200 paid by these foolish fellows will, by the boy, be given his father.
Troth would it might.
In doing me such wrong, he does me right. Ludgate was once my dwelling, and to show that I true feeling of his misery knew, be it long since blown o'er, so thou consent, within that place I'll raise some monument, shall keep our names alive till doomsday.
I gladly shall agree in any act that tends to charity.
Enter Master Brewen.
Come, where's Master Foster? Oh, you lose time, sir, not meeting fortune that comes to kiss you. The Lord Mayor and Alderman stay at the Guildhall, expecting you as well to set down order, touching the entertainment of the king as to elect you for the following year as Sheriff of London.
Their loves outstrip my merit, yet since they lay that load on me, I'll bear it. Wait in scarlet on my liege and king. But pray resolve me, Master Alderman, why makes the king this visitation?
Troth, sir, to honor me, I thank his highness, who, with my lord the cardinal, comes along to see the dedication of my house, built for the weary travelers to rest in, where stands 300 beds for their relief, with meat, drink, and some money when they part, which I'll give freely with a willing heart.
A pious, worthy, and religious act. Come, sir, to the Guildhall. Wife, look to your kinsman. Watch him near, but do not hinder him if he relieve his father. Come, Master Alderman, with such sweet incense up your offerings fly, I'll build one altar more to charity.
And they exit. A New Wonder, A Woman Never Vexed is sponsored by Mary's Hospital. I mean, and that's the point where it starts feeling like an infomercial, doesn't it? And it's when everyone starts saying, "Hey, we'll do the thing." But of course, the important thing is that the king's coming. The king's coming. Oh, the king's gonna come! Yay! Oh, hey, the king's coming. I mean, no one in the play has mentioned him coming earlier. Is that just me who's been going on about it for ages? But yeah, the king is coming. He is going to be there. But we have a little back and forth between Stephen and wife about Robert and about sort of testing him. So yeah, there's a testing thing going on now. There's a little bit going on there. Thoughts on the room? The clown came on. Did the clown really touch the sides there? I mean, I was aware the clown was saying some words, but did the clown? I mean, there were some jokes. Lambskin got a couple of good ones in there. There were some good stool jokes. I thought the mace bit was okay, but yeah, it was not the most. Alan joining us.
Yeah, they seem to have shifted into the herbs and spices section of the joke book rather than the bawdy puns.
Well, yeah, they've gone for the back end rather than the front.
Yeah, he's obviously found another page in his gag book.
John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to how it came off earlier. I found that some of his first lines were pretty good, and then it seemed to slack off thereafter. But I get the sense that wasn't necessarily the case when you were reading it out loud.
Well, I mean, there were supporters of his opening gambit. I wasn't a huge fan, but some people thought that worked. So I think we were discussing earlier that it's sort of the way he tells them. It as the clown is probably written for the author to play. Not definitively, it might not have done. But yeah, there might be that element that actually we're just missing the idiom.
Right.
But it's odd that the clown is so small. Say again?
I would say it could have been written for a specific actor.
Well, we think the author wrote it for himself. So for William Rowley.
Okay.
Because he was known as a clown and that thing. But again, it might not be. It's quite a small role, to be honest. I mean, he's in 3 scenes so far, and they're not massive scenes. The first one is perhaps his biggest gambit, and then he's sort of there and does a few lines.
Well, it supports that idea in the sense that he's not really making himself the center of the play, but sort of just stick himself in a little.
Alan.
Yeah, well, he's still going to get his appearance money, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it depends when this is coming in. Anyway, yeah. Other thoughts on this little scene? We're back in the family. A little touching in on the mistress and wife's relationship. Again, they're quite good to each other on a whole. I mean, there's quite a nice little opening gap. I quite like that we were talking earlier about. Don't go and talk to her, and she does anyway. And everyone keeps doing things anyway. That's what I quite like about this play. So, don't you do this, and they do. And it's very human, and I like that.
Yeah.
Lois and then John.
Yeah, it's odd though. I mean, I can see Stephen being nasty about old Foster with Robert to see how he behaves, but it seems odd that he does the same thing with his wife, and yet, a scene later, is perfectly happy about their relationship and, just being a nice guy. Maybe he really does undergo some kind of conversion in the prison scene and changes his mind about this. I don't know.
I think also the earlier scene is in the height of anger, and he doesn't at that point know about the sinking of the boat. It takes him a while, and then, when he does hear about the boat, again, it's still in the height of anger. So somewhere between that and also seeing his brother in prison, because of course he's been to that prison, he knows what it's like. Stephen, has been there himself.
Yeah, but I think he does. I mean, because she's heard about the boat and says, "Oh dear, my sister will be even more miserable than usual. I better go comfort her." And he says, "No, don't."
Yeah, but that's the moment of him finding out. He didn't know about it prior to. So it's in a moment, and there's no time for reflection. Whereas a bit of time has now passed. So I can sort of think that'll even out in performance.
Yeah.
I mean, there's several moments where I'm going, it would be lovely if we had a scene here, but the play is also already quite long, and I think there's a question of how many psychological beats you can put in without overloading the play with too much stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to damn the play for wanting those bits. But it is true, the actors would need to do a little bit of work there. And then, they're going to found some things. King's coming. Stephen's going to be is rising to be a sheriff. So he's doing well, considering he was in prison 5 minutes ago. He's rising really high very quickly. I suspect some telescoping of events.
It's just like in the Eastward Ho, where Golding, starts out as an apprentice. The minute he gets his freedom, he's, I think, a deputy to something. The next thing you know, he's a sheriff. I mean, he really, it's ridiculous. And it never happened like that in real life.
But hey, we're used to history plays telescoping time. That's fine. Okay, let's go into Act 5. Let's find out what's going to happen in this fifth and final act of the play. Act 5, Scene 1. Enter Old Foster, Mistress's wife, and Keeper.
Come, be merry, sir. Do as mourners do at funerals. Wear your hat in your eyes and laugh in your heart.
I have no such fat legacy left to me to teach me how to play the hypocrite.
No? Well, look ye, sir, you shall want neither meat, drink, money, nor anything that the house affords, or anything abroad like ye, sir. Here's money. Send for what you will, sir. Nay, you shall beg no more at the grave, neither.
Ah, is not this Ludgate?
Yes, sir.
A jail, a prison, a tomb of men locked up, alive and buried.
'Tis what you please to call it.
Oh, at what crevice then hath comfort, like a sunbeam crept in? For all the doors and windows are of iron, and barred to keep her out. I had a limb cut from my body, dear to me as my life. I had a son, and brother too. Oh, grief! They both would give me poison first in gold, before their hollow palms 10 drops should hold of nature's drink, cold water, but to save my life 1 minute. Whence should pity come when my best friends do beat it from this room?
No matter, sir. Since you've had good meat set before you, never ask who sent it. If heaven provide for you, and make the fowls of the air your caterers, feed them fat, and be thankful. And so I'll leave you.
Exit Keeper.
The keeper is your friend and pours true balm into your smarting wounds. Therefore, dear husband, endure the dressing with patience.
Oh, wife, my losses are as numberless as the sea sands that swallowed them. And shall I, in reckoning them, my sad griefs multiply?
You may, sir, but your dim eyes so thick with tears do run, you cannot see from whence your comforts come. Besides, your debts being truly counted cannot be great.
But all my wealth and state lies in the sea's bottom.
It again may rise.
Oh, never.
Good sir, so hope, for I from heaven espy an arm to pluck you from this misery.
Enter Keeper.
Sir, there's one without desires to speak with you.
Go, send him in.
Exit Keeper.
None comes to do me good. My wealth is lost. Now let them take my blood.
Enter Robert.
Ha! What art thou? Call for the keeper there, and thrust him out of doors, or lock me up.
Oh, 'tis your son, sir.
I know him not.
Get your knee pads ready. Robert kneels.
I am no king, unless of scorn and woe. Why kneel'st thou then? Why dost thou mock me so?
Oh, my dear father, hither am I come, not like a threatening storm to increase your wrack, for I would take all sorrows from your back, to lay them all on my own.
Rise, mischief, rise, away, and get thee gone.
Oh, if I be thus hateful to your eye, I will depart, and wish I soon may die. You let your blessings, sir, but follow me.
My heart still hates thee.
Wait, husband.
Get you both gone. That misery takes some rest that dwells alone. Away, thou villain!
Heaven can tell, ache but your finger. I to make it well would cut my hand off.
Hang thee! Hang thee!
Husband.
Destruction meet thee! Turn the key there! Ho!
Good sir, I'm gone. I will not stay to grieve you. Oh, knew you for your woes what pains I feel, you would not scorn me so. See, sir, to cool your heat of burning sorrow, I have got 200 pounds, and glad it is my lot to lay it down with reverence at your feet. No comfort in the world is to me as sweet, whilst thus you live in moan.
Stay.
Good troth, sir, I'll have none of it back. Could but 1 penny of it save my life.
But yet stay and hear him. Oh, unnatural strife in a hard father's bosom.
I see mine error now. Oh, can there grow a rose upon a bramble? Did there e'er flow poison and health together in one tide? I'm born a man. Reason may step aside and lead a father's love out of the way. Forgive me, my good boy. I went astray. Look, on my knees I beg it. Not for joy thou bringst this golden rubbish, which I spurn, but glad in this, the heavens mine eyeballs turn, and fix them right to look upon that face, where love remains with pity, duty, grace. Oh, my dear wronged boy.
Gladness o'erwhelms my heart. With joy I cannot speak.
Process of this foolish world did never grieve my heart with torments more than it is now grown light with joy and comfort of this happy sight.
Yet, wife, I disinherited this boy.
Your blessings all I crave.
And that enjoy forever. Evermore my blessings fly to pay thy virtues, love and charity.
But before somebody else comes in to interrupt this wonderful, sentimental, I can hear violins playing in the background. I mean, it's not the subtlest stuff in the universe, but I think they have set this scene up for quite a long time. Whether one can fundamentally feel the turnaround of Hold Foster to be genuinely felt when he's just had £200 dropped at his feet and goes, "Don't stay." I think there is a slight awkwardness there. But I think the scene is designed to be genuine and a moment, and there's lots of kneeling, and there's kneeling back. Robert to get some payback for his kneeling, and yeah, it's laying it on thick. But I kind of forgive the play if it's overly sentimental, because I'm sort of getting the increasing syrup being poured onto this play the further we get into it. The more we mention the founding of hospitals and reformed prisons, I start going, the Victorians would have loved this one. John, I think we're waving.
Well, the more I think that I agree with that. I mean, I think that the fact that the forgiveness comes so ridiculously hard on the heels of the 200 pounds is like, that's the thing that saves this scene in a sense. I mean, without that, it would be kind of unbearable. It's sort of almost there anyway. And the other thing I wanted to say before was just that I can't believe, was sort of astounded and disappointed that the Lambskin character actually appeared last scene, and I did not have the opportunity to utterly abuse the word observation.
Yes, of which was spoken many a time before. I mean, what's also interesting, I quite like about the scene, is the beginning of the scene when it's like the keepers suddenly and he's going, "This prison's become terribly nice. What's going on?" So there's still comedy underlaying this. It still is funny, I think, in performance, more so than we're reading it in this context of just like, hang on, who let comfort in? There are doors. So there's still some nice little bit of business there. Lois.
Yeah, I think
Well, how many people left after the word "stay" though? Still, seriously.
Well,
after the
well,
word
I
"stay"
don't
right
have a
after
problem with a little bit of
£200,
laughter.
Stay.
It's fine. It's fine. And again, we can give that down to the actors a little license. Lois.
Yeah, I think the most surprising thing is that Mistress Foster has suddenly become consoling and comforting. I mean, I know that she was advised to do that, but given her usual behavior, this seems very odd. I can only think that somehow it's kind of polarization. Her husband is being so miserable that she's got to go to the other extreme somehow.
Mm. And also, maybe there's a little bit of self-interest. She knows that Robert's on the up now, so don't look at she doesn't know he's going to turn up with money per se, but she may be going, don't turn everyone away. We need as many friends as we can get, sort of logic.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I suppose you could perfectly well play Foster later on. I despise this money that you've just brought, in a way that makes it quite clear that he's talking through his hat.
Yeah.
But it's structuring, right? I mean, that of all the things that have to happen in this play is the mistress has to be suddenly actually have a moment of actual happiness at near the end of in the fifth act, and the mistress is going to have to be blissfully miserable at least some point, isn't she? I mean, doesn't that have to happen?
But she's been blissfully. Mistress has been miserable.
Right. Their roles have to be solved.
Well, yeah. I mean, the only way presumably to make the wife happy is for her to be terribly poor. I mean, that's the problem of her predicament. And I don't think that's going to happen at this late stage. I mean, I don't know. It might be time. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, what's sort of ridiculous about it is that happiness is really what you make it. And I mean, the wife has said earlier that when her husband died, she immediately had this vision of him in heaven, so she was happy instead of being wretched. And clearly, I mean, it's always in your power to imagine something that'll make you feel better about a situation, or make you feel worse about it. So she could perfectly well be saying all the time, I'm really miserable because my husband isn't treating me badly.
Okay, well, let's see where the wife is, because enter Stephen's wife to this heartwarming scene.
Here comes your brother's wife. Welcome, dear sister.
I thank you. How fare you, brother?
Better than your husband's hate could wish me, that laughs to see my back with sorrow's bow, but I am rid of half my ague now.
Had you an ague, then?
Yes, and my heart had every hour a fit, but nowst has left me well, and I left it.
Oh, 'tis well. Cousin, what make you here, I pray?
To support a weak house falling to decay.
'Tis well if you can do it, and that the timber you underprop it with be all your own. Hark, coz, where's your uncle's money?
Faith, aunt, 'tis gone, but not at dice or drabbing.
Sir, I believe with your uncle's gold your father you relieve.
You are saved, believing so. Your belief's true.
You cut large thongs of that another's due, and you will answer it ill. Now, in good troth, I laugh at this jest. Much good do them both. My wager I had won, had I but laid.
What has my poor boy done, that you have made so much blood rise in's cheeks?
Nothing, dear brother, indeed, all's well. The course that he has run, I like and love. Let him hold on the same. A son's love to a father none can blame. I will not leave your brother's iron heart till I have beat it soft with my entreats.
'Twill ne'er be music till 'tis so full of frets.
Frets make best music. Strings the higher racked sound sweetest.
And sound nothing when they are cracked, as is his love to me, and mine to him.
I hope you both in smoother streams shall swim. He's now the Sheriff of London, and in council set at the Guildhall in his scarlet gown, with mayor and aldermen, how to receive the king, who comes to see Master Brewen's hospital tomorrow, consecrated by the cardinal and old St. Mary's Spittle here in Shoreditch.
Aye, sister, and you may set about what you will. Heaven, I am sure, prospers it. But I am ever crossed. You have been bound for 3 great voyages, yet ne'er run aground. Maid, wife, and widow, and wife again, have spread full and fair sails. No wrecks you e'er did dread, nor e'er felt any. But even close ashore I'm sunk, and midst of all my wealth made poor.
You must thank
him.
I do indeed for all.
Sister, that hand can raise that gives the fall.
Enter Keeper.
Master Foster, the new sheriff, your brother, is come to Ludgate, and I am come in haste to know your pleasure, if you would see him.
I'll see a fury first. Hence, clap to the door, I pray thee.
Why, 'tis your brother, sir.
Father, let's fly the thunder of his rage.
Stand valiantly, and let me bear the storm. All hurts that are, and ruins in your bosoms, I'll repair.
Enter Stephen Foster.
Where's the keeper? Go, sir, take my officers, and see your prisoners presently conveyed from Ludgate unto Newgate and the counters.
I shall, sir.
Let the constables of the wards assist you. Go, dispatch, and take these with you. How now? What makest thou here, thou caitiff? Comest thou to stitch his wounds that seeks to cut my throat? Darest thou in despite relieve this dotard?
Get thee from my sight, thou devil in red. Comest thou in scarlet pride to tread on thy poor brother in jail? Is there but one small conduit pipe that runs cold water to my comfort, and wouldst thou cut off that, thou cruel man?
Yes, I'll stop that pipe that thou mayst pining sit. When drops but fell on me, thou poisoned it. Thou thrusts a son's name from thy cruel breast for clothing of his uncle. Now that uncle shall thrust him naked forth for clothing thee, banished forever from my wealth and me.
Thou canst not be to nature so uneven, to punish that which has a pay from heaven, pity, and duty.
Stephen offers to strike Robert.
Wouldst thou strike? Wound me then. That will kill thee, if I can.
Thou ravest.
How can I choose? Thou makest me mad. For shame thou shouldst not make these white hairs sad. Churl, beat not my poor boy. Let him not lose thy love for my sake. I had rather bruise my soul with torments for 1,000 years, could I but live them, rather than salt tears thy malice drew from him. See, here's thy gold. Tell it, none stole. My woes can ne'er be told.
Oh, misery! Is nature quite forgot?
Choke with thy dunghill muck, and vex me not.
No, keep it. He perhaps that money stole to give it thee, for which, to vex thy soul, I'll turn him forth of doors. Make him thy heir of jails, miseries, curses, and despair, for here I disinherit him of all.
No matter. Lands to him in heaven will fall.
Good husband.
Dear uncle.
I am deaf.
Undamned, the devil's thumbs stop thine ears.
I'll make thee wash those curses off with tears. Keeper, away with him out of my sight, and do, sir, as I charged you.
Yes, sir, I will.
Poor tyranny, when lions weak lambs kill.
And exeunt all but Stephen and his wife.
How now, wife? Art vexed yet?
Never so well content. Believe me, sir, your mildness wears this mask of cruelty well.
Oh, I'm glad they're gone. Mine eyes with rain did swell, and much ado they had from pouring down. The keeper knows my mind. Wife, I've paid my brother's debts, and when he's out of door to march to Newgate, he shall be set free.
Oh, let me kiss thee for this charity. But for your cousin, sir?
He's my life's best health. The boy shall not miscarry for more wealth than London gates lock safe up every night. My breath in black clouds flies, my thoughts are white.
Why, from Ludgate, do you remove the prisoners?
This is my meaning, wife. I'll take the prison down and build it new, with leads to walk on and rooms large and fair. For when myself lay there, the noisome air choked up my spirits, and none better know what prisoners feel than they that taste the woe. The workmen are appointed for the business. I will have it dispatched before 'tis thought on.
In good deeds, I'll walk hand in hand with you. There is a fair tenement adjoining close to the gate that was my father's. I'll give it freely. Take it down and add so much ground to the work.
'Tis fairly given. Thy soul on prisoners' prayers shall mount to heaven. The plumbers and the workmen have surveyed the ground from Paddington, whence I'll have laid pipes all along to London to convey sweet water into Ludgate from fresh springs. When charity tunes the pipe, poor man sings.
Enter keeper.
How now, keeper?
Prisoners are removed, sir.
What did you do with my brother?
As you commanded, sir. I've discharged him.
How did he meet that unexpected kindness?
Troth, sir, as a man overcome twixt grief and gladness. Returning to his son, he fetched a sigh, so violent as if his heart would break, and silent wept, having no power to speak.
Alas, good old man, some sweet bird must sing and give his sorrows present comforting.
Not yet. I'll rack his sorrows to the height, and of themselves they'll then sink softly down. Keeper, go thou again after my brother. Charge in my name him and his son to appear before the king, to whom I will make known their wrongs against me, showing just cause to disinherit both by course of law. Begone.
Gone, sir.
Exit keeper.
Come, wife.
What's your meaning, sir?
Thou shalt know that anon. The heavens oft scowl, clouds thicken, winds blow high, yet the brightest sun clears all. So will I.
And exeunt. Okay. Now, I'm already. We haven't read the final scene, but I'm already sort of thinking ahead to the final scene in terms of clearing up the action of the play. And obviously, what we're going to get in a moment is the king's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of attendance. It's going to be very expensive to stage. So I'm kind of thinking we had all the ingredients for a reconcilement in this scene in the prison. So I'm kind of thinking ahead, going, can we move some of the material from the next scene and just resolve everything now in the prison? Because that's kind of that kind of feels fine. However, if you want to do lots of pageantry, then you've got King Henry coming on in a couple of minutes. And also the one big problem I have is the big problem with any of these test narratives is the person making the test always comes across as a bastard. And it's like, he doesn't need to do any of this, actually. And it's sort of like, it's just for a theatrical effect. And I kind of would just like them to just get on with just reconciling now. So I do have, there's a lot of, good sort of turning around of scenes and emotionalism. That's sort of what I'm seeing here, is this idea of a sort of melodramatic presentation, which is fine if you like that kind of thing. I'm not against it per se, but I'm not quite sure it quite fits where the rest of the play was, where there was some psychology going on, and now it's kind of feeling more contrived. And I'm starting to feel that maybe Heywood has got his claws into the end of this play. I'm really getting the sense that we are with a different writer from most of the rest of the play that we've read. It does feel like a very different hand in what's going on there. So I can sort of understand why people attribute some of this perhaps to Heywood, because that does actually make a lot of sense. Aliki.
So, there's a writer who really likes rhymes and sometimes twists the lines around to make a lot of rhymes. In the comments, I referenced Ira Gershwin, and I sort of do get the feeling of that period's musicals with their clockwork plots that are much more about bringing everything into the right place than as you say, psychology. That said, I do think that Stephen has the right to torture his brother a bit. His brother absolute bastard about his own debts. So
yeah, okay. yeah, that's. I mean, I to a degree, I don't have a problem with it. Structurally, I think it all sort of hangs together and it's kind of fine. And I think in performance, it will all hang together and be fine. But there is just that sense of the last 2 sessions of going, oh, I was really getting into these people, and now I'm no longer getting into these people because they're all a little wheeled on at the moment. Lois.
It's an odd moment when Stephen asks his wife, "Are you vexed yet?" Because it gives the impression that maybe he's been doing what he's been doing with the idea of finally vexing her, and yet it's hard to see why it would vex her, since she already knows that he's putting on an act.
Yeah.
I think it's irony. I think he's joking. I think he's joking because that's like her main thing she says about herself, and he promised to do that when they got married, and now he's doing all the most wonderful things anybody could do. It's like, so are you vexed yet? Jeez, it's a joke, isn't it?
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. That it is a lighter thing because, of course, he's dropping the act. Everybody's exited, and it's just like where are we? Because in a sense, it's been a very unpleasant little scene that he's just manufactured here, and that sort of fits there. But yeah, they've let all the prisoners out so they can build a new prison. Isn't he nice? Isn't he nice? Isn't it great? Again, the stirring music I'm expecting to play in the background of just I will build this place. It will be wonderful. Look how wonderful I am. And the musical. I'm starting to feel that yes, it's drifting into musical territory, isn't it?
And as you were saying, what this scene is brought to you, I sort of imagine like the way you get a logo on the screen, they probably had like a piece of wood with the logo for the new hospital being built that at this point comes up on the stage. I mean, it seems very, very advertising.
I just have to add my laugh there. Very good, Robert.
the voice in the wilderness there, joining us. Over to Mark, then Eric.
I think it's hilarious that like Stephen's like, and people in prison are just going to be thinking, just praying like, man, whoever built this prison, love it, great place.
Yeah, 5 stars on TripAdvisor. Would offend again.
Presumably a prison with functioning sewers and things like that is better than one that doesn't have them and so on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, let's.
It is an improvement.
It is an improvement. You are 20% less likely to die of dysentery. Let's not knock it.
The idea that the prisoners are going to be saying prayers and thanks. That's what's.
Yeah, I mean, it was a genuine problem with prisons, is that you more often than not, you died before you got to actually be arraigned. And, that was a genuine problem. So, let's not knock what these people were trying to do.
A little like the end of Life of Brian, right? Always look on the right as they're on the crosses there.
Yeah, all the happy prisoners do a little conga line across the stage. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing this ending getting more and more over the top as we go. Other thoughts? Eric, I think you were next.
Yeah, I was going to say yesterday, and I think you'd also mentioned the day before, but I wasn't here the day before that, so yeah, I don't know. We were talking about like the use of space outside of the stage as something like sort of, they went out to the garden, and we don't assume that, like, it's not the stage is within or without. They kind of, I don't know, Stephen's doing quite a lot of that. He's doing that thing of, yes, you will go and order people to bring the people from the grate and bring the prisoners and all that stuff. So it's like stuff is happening at the same time. Which is quite, I don't know, it's just interesting, I guess.
Yeah, the keeper must have exited, and then you hear in the background, whoa-hey! Sound of footsteps as people leave. Because, yes, the sort of within the logic of the scene, that's all happening during this sort of little exchange. And yeah, as I say, that the keeper, it doesn't say the keeper exits and comes back on again, but he must do during that scene, I would have thought. Anyway, any other thoughts before we go into Act 5, Scene 2? No. Okay. Act 5, Scene 2. Enter King Henry III. Yay! Everything will now be solved because there's a monarch. There's a member of the royal family's turned up, so that'll solve everything. Enter King Henry III, attended by Montfort, Pembroke, and Arundel, Lord Mayor, Stephen Foster as Sheriff, Alderman, Brewen, etc.
Oh, welcome is all love. Our people's shouts in their heart's language makes our bienvenus most high and sovereign. We return all thanks unto our loving citizens, chiefly to you, sir, whose pious work invites our majesty to royalize this place with our best presence, accompanied with this reverend cardinal. Would that me might, after so many broils, end our days too in these religious toils, we would work most faithfully. But, bounteous sir, how do you call your building?
Unless it please your majesty to change it, I call it Domus Dei.
House of God, it is too good to change. Pray you proceed.
These are my ends. To all distressed Christians whose travels this way bend, the hospital shall free succor be for 3 days and 3 nights sojourn. Diet and lodging, both sweet and satisfying, and, if there need be such, as much in coin as shall for 3 days more defray their further travel. This unto heaven be you testator, good my liege, and witness with me, noble gentlemen, most free and faithfully I dedicate.
An honorable work, and deserves large memory.
'Tis a good example, 'tis pity 'tis not better followed.
Say, sir, now in some future age, perhaps some 200 or 300 year behind us, this place, intended for a use so charitable, should be unhallowed again by villainous inhabitants, say whores instead of Christians, and your hospital tenements turned into stews. Would not this grieve you in your grave?
If my grave were capable of grief, sure it would, sir.
Prithee, be a false prophet.
I will, if I can, my lord.
Let us now our heralds in the streets proclaim the title and office of this hospital, make known to all distressed travelers that will accept his charitable house. This Domus Dei shall be their free sojourn, as is proposed.
I'm just going to pause there because I think we really have to just briefly stop on this bit of editorial comment that Arundel does here of, what happens if this wonderful charitable institution in the future becomes a place of iniquity? And it says, well, I hope that won't happen. And it's just like, clearly this place doesn't have a great reputation anymore. So, and is that a lobbying thing of could maybe some reform would be a good idea? So that's a really interesting little moment. I feel it's the kind of thing you probably need to cut from the production because it's like it's no longer topical anymore unless you can make it into a topical gag about a different institution. I suppose we could change where it is and find something that would be appropriate, but yeah, that's a lovely historical note that I like. You can hear them groaning in the aisles. Anyway, we will continue. I just wanted to flag that little point up. Enter on one side, Stephen's wife, on the other, Old Foster, Mistress Foster, Jane, Robert, and Keeper. All kneel.
What are these petitioners?
Each hath a knee for duty, the other for petition.
Rise, your duty's done. Your petitions shall need no knees, so your intents be honest. Does none here know them?
Yes, my good lord. There's now a wonder in your sight.
A wonder, Master Sheriff? You mean for beauty?
No, my liege, I would not so boast mine own wife. But it is a wonder that excels beauty.
A wonder in a woman? What is, I prithee?
Patience, my liege. This is a woman that was never vexed.
You may boast it largely. 'Tis a subject's happiness above a queen's. Have you suit to us?
I am the suppliant plaintiff, Royal Henry. For me, their griefs take their original.
What art thou?
Even what your grace shall please to make of me. I was the son of this distressed father until he took his paternity off and threw me from his love. Then I became son to mine uncle by adoption, who likewise hath taken away again, and thrown me back to poverty. Never was son so tossed betwixt two fathers, yet knows not one. For still the richest does despise his heir, and I am back expulsed into despair.
This may your vices cause.
For that I come to your impartial censure for a doom.
We hear. Speak on. We know the parties. Each one relate his grief, and if it lie in us, will yield relief. It is first requisite that we know of you, sir, the cause of this, your son, his disinheritance.
Before I understood his virtuous mind, or weighed his disposition to be kind, I did that froward work. This now great man was an unthrifty wretch, a prodigal then, and I disdained to know his brotherhood, denied relief to him. This child, kind and good, against my contradiction, did him relieve, and his distressed uncle at this I chid, forbade. Still he holds on his course, he grows more kind, and he in wasting worse. My rage continued as it had begun, and in that rage I threw away my son.
The like plead I, my lord, for when my state had raised self by an uncertain fate, I took this outcast child, made him my own, as full and free as I myself had sown the seed that brought him forth. For this my love, his obliged duty presently did prove a traitor to my trust, against my will succoring that foe which I did love so ill, only for hating him. My charity being thus abused and quit with injury, what could I then but, as his father erst, so I again might throw him from my love? For worse is love abused than newborn hate, and should be so refused. I did a father's part. If it were bad, blame him for both. There I my pattern had.
You fall betwixt two pillars, sir, is not so?
Unhappy fate, my lord, yet thus I plead. For my father's hate I might deserve, I broke his precepts, and did unchildly swerve from his commission. I to my uncle gave what was my father's, striving thereby to save his fallen repute. He raged, I did it still, yet I must confess, as it was well, 'twas ill. Well in my love, methought, ill to my fate. For I thereby ruined my own estate. But that mine uncle throws me forth of door, for the same cause he took me in before, beats sorest gainst my bosom. If it were good to take from father for an uncle's food, in laws of love and nature, how much rather might I abridge an uncle for a father? Charity's a virtue generally stands, and should dispersed be through all men's hands. Then would you keep it alone? For when your heir I was adopted was, charity was there. How errs your judgment then? Seeing, you see, what was good in you, makes sin in me. They'll say my father did it. Oh, throw away that foul excuse. Let not distraction stray so far aside. If custom lawful make, then sin were lawful for example's sake. Now, nor were those wasted goods only your own, since part was mine, having adoption. Then do me right, my lord, yet do no wrong, for where my duty failed, my love was strong.
With an impartial ear, we have heard your loving story. 'Tis both fair and honest.
Let me now anticipate your grace, and casting off the shadow of a face, show my heart's true figure. How have I strived to make this forced counterfeit long-lived, and now it bursts. Come both into my heart. I have two jewels here, shall never part from my love's eye-watch. Too worthy to be filed on time's best record, a woman and a child. Now, sir, to you I come. We must be friends. Though envy wills not so, yet love contends 'gainst envy and her forces. My young years say I must offer first a peace in tears.
Oh, let my shame my bosom's centre break. Love is so young, it coys, but cannot speak.
You bless mine eyes with objects that become the theatre of kings to look upon.
The keeper is discharged, sir, your debts are paid, and from the prison you're a free man made. There's not a creditor can ask you aught. As your son did for me, so have I bought your liberty with mine, and to increase it more, because I know bare liberty is poor without assistance, to raise your state again, the third of mine are yours. Say you amen?
No, not to that. You are kind brothers now. Divide by halves that love, and I'll allow.
Thou art only wise in virtue. As thou setst down, so let it be. Half my estate's your own.
It whole redounds again, for I am yours. Forget this minute, my forgetful hours.
They are buried all, sir.
This union's good. Such league should ever be in brotherhood.
Yet, without boast, my liege, let me relate one small thing more. Remorse of my own state, and my dear brother's worse succession. For that we both have prisoners been in one self-same place of woe, and felt those throes that Ludgate yields. My charity bestows some alms of comfort. Keeper, you can speak it.
Good law, sir. You have re-edified and built it fair, adding more ground to it, and by pipes of lead from Paddington drawn, water thither free for all prisoners, lodgings likewise free, and under £1 yearly to make, then fires for better comfort. All this is almost finished.
A worthy work, the better being done in the founder's eye, not left unto succession.
My good lord, I ever kept in mind an English sentence which my tutor is, and teaches me to act my charity with mine own hands. So doubtful is performance when the benefactor's dead.
What is that, prithee?
This, my good lord. Women are forgetful, children unkind, executors covetous, and take what they find. If any man ask where the dead's goods became, the executor swears he died a poor man.
You have prevented well. So has this good alderman. I wish you many scholars.
You make some doubts of me in this, sir. Did you not say that women are forgetful?
You have vexed her now, sir. How do you answer that?
No, my lord, she's exempt from the proverb.
No, my lord, I'll help it better. I do confess that women are forgetful. Yet, nevertheless, I am exempt. I know my fate, and find my dear husband must not leave me behind, but I must go before him. And 'tis said, the grave's good rest when women go first to bed.
Thanks for thy excuse, good wife, but not thy love to fill my grave before me. I would not live to see that day.
Prithee, no more. I'd rather be angry than flattered.
You have a wonder, Master Sheriff, a priceless jewel.
Many jewels, my good lord, a brother, wife, and child. For this I would have strove even with a father. Howe'er rough storms did in my brows appear, within my bosom it was always clear.
I give him to you now, sir.
I take him, and to him back do give all that myself behind in state shall leave.
And all that you gave me, I do bestow. So in 1 hour become full heir to 2.
I claim a third by this bond's virtue.
Pointing to Jane.
See, as a father thou art heir to those.
Not go to him, father, on any of these conditions.
You shall have love to boot too, sweet Jane.
Nay, and you play booty, I dare not trust you.
What shall I say? Accept my hand and heart, tied in a true love's knot, never to part.
Ay, marry, sir, these are better conditions than the inheritance of 3 fathers. Let me have love in esse, let lands follow in posse. Now I'll have thee as fast as the priest can dispatch us. Let him read as fast as he can.
The liveliest harmony that e'er I heard. All instruments compared to these sweet tunes are dull and harsh. I joy to see so good a child. A woman wonder? Brothers reconciled? You, worthy sir, did invite us to a feast, will not forget it, but will be your guest, because we'll view these wonders o'er again, whose records do deserve a brazen pen. But this, above the rest, in golden text shall be insculped, a woman never vexed.
And exit. Okay, Robert did quite well out of that. He inherits everybody's money. Well done, Robert. That really went well for him at the end there. At great length. Anyone else slightly feeling too many notes, Mozart? There is an awful lot of stuff, and then it starts getting into this proverby bit, and I'm sort of going, I'm not even sure what you're doing here. I kind of know what you're doing here, but I'm also not really sure where it's like they're trying to force this, oh, woman never vexed, have we vexed a bit? And it's like, oh, it's too late to really start playing that, man. You gave up on that in Act 2. You haven't engaged with this question for quite a long time, and now you're just trying to cram the title in at the end, which is kind of okay, but it sort of doesn't quite land, does it? It ties up all the knots, but I think a few cuts here and there might be good there. Alan.
I must admit, my proposed cut would be the whole of the scene.
I
was sitting here thinking, pass the sick bag, Alice.
Yeah, I mean, I said last scene that I already want to cut the next scene, because it's like the king turns up and we don't need it. We just need to move some of this reconciliation stuff to the previous scene. They all reconcile in prison, and the prisoners exit doing a conga line. That's an ending. I mean, I'm sure in practice it will actually stage fine. And that's overstating it a bit. But yeah, I always get a bit annoyed when it's, hi, the monarch will solve everything, and it's like, do we need the monarch to solve it? Do we need that?
The
really?
monarch didn't actually solve everything. He just sort of sat there and watched as they solved it.
Yeah, but it's the logic of the situation, right, as he blesses the and make and it's sort of irritating. Anyway, Lois.
Yeah, what's odd about it is that it's actually rather like those controversiae that we've seen dramatized, I think particularly in the Laws of Candy, where the end is a sort of, here's the law case, and this is this paradox. I did all these things that were right, and he didn't like me. Now I've done these other things that were right, and he was angry at me. And it allows Robert to state the whole thing in I think in the manner of those Senecan things that are usually paradoxes. I mean, he makes the point that if it was charity to do it, and you liked it, then why isn't it okay for me to be charitable now? But it goes on forever. And I think you could get quite a bit of comedy out of the way that I'm going to give this money to you. No, it's okay. I'm going to give this money to you. Actually, you're going to get the money. No, you're going to get the money. I mean, let's see how generous we can all be. But I think you'd have to wind up. You've got to have Robert and Jane getting contracted. I mean, they've got to be part of this ending.
Oh yeah, no, I think you can cram more people into the prison cell if you wanted to do it that way. But I think you're right. You can get to the ending quicker here, and yeah, it does have that feel, in the sense that I think Eric brought up Fulgence and Lucrece the other day. It becomes this series of arguments that are being made, and here is the moral of the story. I mean, it's reminding me of Thomas Cromwell. The moral of Thomas Cromwell, until they remember the Reformation happened, is that basically you pay it forward. If you are generous and give to other people, then all good things will come to you, and that's what Robert is rewarded for, being nice. And that's sort of the whole point of the story. And we've seen other plays that do the similar thing, and it's a lovely fairy story. This is how the world actually works, and it's quite and in that sense, having the king turn up at the end is sort of part of that fantasy, isn't it? That it's all, and now the king is here to bless everything and be da-da.
John. Yeah, I was thinking about that also, that same idea. But that speech by Robert is a little bit undercut by the fact that, I mean, I think we see this dynamic going earlier. When Stephen ends up obviously in his brother's place, and his brother ends up in his place. And you would think, I mean, you watch Stephen do exactly the thing he was mad about before. I mean, I don't think you need to wait for Robert's speech to have that particular, light bulb go off over your head. But by the time Robert's saying this, he's actually changed his mind. I mean, really, really obviously on stage, suddenly, you know what? Forget it. It's my brother and screw the whole thing. He's learned the lesson before we get the speech about it being wrong, which seems like an odd sort of way to order those events.
I do quite like also the wooing of Jane is a plotline that we haven't really touched on for quite a while, and there is a nice little sort of love match there going on. But there is also the fact that Jane is going, after she's found out that he's getting all the money, would you like to marry me? Yes, please. So there's always that slightly mercenary element to this, that this play is all about money as well, that this is about the accumulation of wealth as well as the giving out of wealth. That these people are very wealthy so they can found hospitals, but they're also really wealthy, and there's an interesting question about how that lands in terms of logic for today. Lois.
I think when Brewen first tells Jane, go off and talk to Robert, and by the way, he's going to be an heir, she does say, I don't care about that. If I don't like him, I'm still not taking him. So she may not be being mercenary here either. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think there is genuine affection there, but there is always that little bit of grit, perhaps there. And this is a play that has subplots that are linked to the plot. I mean, it's interesting that the two comedy suitors, they're only in 3 scenes, but there is a nice beginning, middle, and end to their journey. They do connect with the whole question of debts and money owed, and actually they're kind of let off lightly for their debts. Their debt is discharged for a relatively small amount of the pennies in the pound. But there is a float, they're sort of almost too small, but they're also almost too big at the same time. And that's quite interesting, their footprint. Whereas I'm increasingly thinking the clown can actually probably be cut now, because though I did quite like his earlier scene to a degree, he doesn't do anything after that first scene, apart from vaguely be on. I mean, he's in 3 scenes, and they all feel a bit cuttable, actually. But yeah, opinions may vary. Lois.
As far as I recall, the only interesting thing the clown does is pretend that it's rather stupid of the widow to marry Stephen when she could have had him, the clown. And he keeps making comments on that, but that can't be a serious proposition. This is just his shtick, I think. He does keep it up for a while, but after that, he really doesn't do anything except make kind of rude comments about everybody.
Yeah, and again, there's part of me that the problem is the framing of him as a clown. Is that we've got other random parts like Richard and George, and people who are there to move the plot forward on some, to do mechanical things like the Keeper later on. And there's a question, can we elide some of those characters? Can we make them real people rather than here is a witty clown? That's sort of my problem with the clown, is he turns up to be the witty clown, and he's not a human being, really. And I don't think that fits in this play awfully well, actually, because however cardboard cutout sometimes people become, and I do think they do become a bit cardboard cutout towards the end. There is a basis, in fact, somewhere. Alan was waving earlier.
Yeah, and I think it's another one where the character naming doesn't help.
No.
The fact that he's called Clown, whereas...
Well, he has got a name. He is called Roger, technically.
I mean, rename him as Roger or rename him as Baldric. It's the same function. Without giving the implication that he's going to be a bundle of laughs.
Yeah,
which by and large he isn't.
Well, and he does have some good lines.
But not that many.
No, and he doesn't. He doesn't have a proper function within the structure of the story. John.
Yeah, two things. First of all, are we sure that his name is Roger? As I recall it, there's like one character, who calls him Roger repeatedly, like several lines in a row, which sort of like it sounds like a New York cabbie calling you Mac. I mean, it never occurs again. I'm sure could that be a speech convention?
Well, he's also, I think he's called Hodge at one point as well, which is has a connection with the name Roger. I think there are two, maybe three reference points in the text where I think it's reasonable to say. And besides, we can call him Roger. We can change it from clown to Roger, and it doesn't solve that problem because I don't think he's integrated enough.
Right. No. That was just a textual question. And the other question, which is, it's really a question for you guys because it's the kind of thing that I would not normally be thinking about. But I'm listening to the way you talk about how you would work with a play like this, and we often talk about like with a character who's like on the edge of being necessary that you could cut him. Do you ever do the opposite? Would you consider doing the opposite to flesh him out when he's almost there? Would you like add stuff?
Oh, potentially, yes. I mean, potentially, anything's in play if it makes a better show. We haven't done that so much. There are a couple of plays where I'm looking at putting additional material in rather than necessarily, the problem is it's very hard to make it join. It's very hard to make it feel part of the original schema because it's very hard to write early modern verse convincingly that it actually matches together. It always sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. But I'm not against it in context. I mean, the idea of rewriting a clown actually is something we've discussed quite a few times. Actually, saying the basic idea of the clown is fine, but his shtick is so weird that it has no connection as comedy to a modern audience. So yeah, that's an option. I think. Yeah, whereas it's interesting because I don't have a problem with the keeper. I like the keeper. The keeper is this nice little part. But because he's integrated, I don't have a problem, and he could probably double as somebody else earlier in the play. Whereas because the clown keeps popping up, it's sort of like, yeah, what else can I do with the clown when he's not on?
It seemed like he would be integrated when the first scene or two you got him, and then stopped seeming that way. Yeah,
but plays. We often feel that plays slightly run out of steam towards the end, and in this case, possibly because it's been handed to a different author. I mean, it's entirely possible that actually William Rowley died, and this was completed by somebody else. The time scheme does sort of fit within that. That is one theory, that it's a later play that's been finished off by someone. I don't think that quite fits the text, but it is a possible, and that may explain why the clown is underwritten, because actually he never finished it. And he wrote a poet for himself, and then he died, and he didn't get a chance to polish it off and make it, properly funny. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, there's a goofy idea that also I think that the clown character was often the star of the jig that followed the play, and that quite often, he disappears early in the play because he's got to get ready to play in the jig.
Yes, the late onset disappearing clown disorder, that we frequently have. I don't know if Susan wants to join us to make a comment or lurking away. Susan, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely wonderful. You're a marvelous group of readers. I heard something, and I've Googled it. Right, lost his rag. And it was mentioned 3 or 4 times it's way back. You mentioned about the rag and he's lost his rag. And I Googled that, and it says that it was first mentioned in 1862 and in a Harry Lauder song in 1926. But that was mentioned here in this play, to lose one's rag. We're talking about textile, we're talking about red rag to a bull. But that really interested me. Anyway, sorry, that's a bit of a segue, but I'm sure aren't we lucky that we hear these things in these plays all the time? Thank you anyway. It was great hearing that.
Okay. Right, well, we're moving into final thoughts. In terms of we have a sense of the shape of the show. I think I've voiced most of my things. I think there's a bit of dramaturgical work. There's definitely some cutting. It's a relatively chunky comedy. I'd want to cut a reasonable amount of it. Whether the clown disappears or the clown is elided or things. We often run a play. give it its due, and it sort of works. So sometimes we overstate these problems that actually it's fine. But the problem is, of course, it's a big company. Most of the central core characters are it's relatively tight, but it's still quite a big family. And then there's the big pageant at the end. So anything that we might do to try and make it more economically achievable is good. But yeah, final thoughts around the room. Sarah, I'll go to you first. I usually come to you last. I think come mostly to you last this week. You were a little disappointed with the mistress and the wife plotline. Are you still a bit disappointed? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's perfectly good. It's just after the first day, the first session on this play, that was kind of a bit outstanding, and I was kind of hoping that it would continue in the same vein, and it just didn't. So yeah, it was fine. It was fine. I mean, it reminded me. I can never remember individual plays because my memory has turned to mush. But it had echoes of other things that we'd done, virtue rewarded, and generosity paid back tenfold, all that kind of thing, and it was perfectly fine. It works. I think it would definitely need some cutting, and I totally agree with you about the clown. Yeah, I think you could cut some chunks out of this and elide some characters quite easily, honestly, and it would be probably quite easy to stage. So great, but it didn't really. No, it was a shame. I loved those characters in the first act. I loved the widow and the mistress, and I kind of want to write them their own play because they deserved more than they got. And so did Jane.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I've been thinking about this last couple of days about the problem, the fundamental problem of the central high concept thing is that I'm not sure there is anywhere to go with it. Actually, how do you to make her happy, you would have to ruin her life. And then, of course, she would. I mean, that would be a very interesting story, but it's not the story that the playwright is actually trying to tell here. It's sort of been a hook, and it's so therefore it doesn't go anywhere because it's not really about them, really. And that's sort of the irritating lie, is that it's supposed to be about these two women, and it seems like it's about these two women, and then it's not, because it's actually that's not the plot of the story.
I think you could give her some grief. I think you could have given her some grief and have her go, "Oh, wait a minute, I was so much happier before. What was I thinking, wanting grief?" And then, ta-da, her fortunes reverse again, and it all ends up happily ever after. And in fact, you could do the same. That you could have a section in the middle where the mistress suddenly becomes very lucky, and the wife becomes very unlucky, and they both. But then, in some way, the luck actually brings the mistress more hassle than she wanted, and she's like, "Oh God, I kind of wish I didn't have all this money now or whatever, because it's just a pain in the arse or whatever." And they end up kind of almost back where they started. But they're both, more content with their situation. I mean, that padded out with a lot of comedy, broad comedy, which, we talked about how to do that in the first scene. That's a play. It would still be quite simple and quite daft, but that's a play I would enjoy watching. But as it was somebody used the word amiable about it yesterday, and that's how I feel about it. It was fine, but it didn't particularly light my fire, which is a shame.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I'm just wondering whether you put your finger on part of the problem with this, with that suggestion that Rowley died in mid-creation of this thing.
Well, we don't know that. So that's just a suggestion that someone once made.
But that theory would make sense, because the first section seemed to flow an awful lot better than the second and third installments. And I just wonder whether the fact it never really got a single mind taking it right the way through into performance, and some of the wrinkles ironed out a bit.
Well, I mean, structurally, there aren't any wrinkles. I mean, the in terms of the story it wants to tell, it's incredibly well structured. The problem is it gives you the impression it's telling a different story in the first act. The setup actually matters to where it goes. But in terms of everything else, I mean, there's not a scene that I'm going, I don't need this scene. There's a couple of bits in scenes where I'm going, well, the clown's a bit boring, and I'm not quite sure what the Doctor's for, because that sort of moral of the story doesn't quite land by the end. It almost does, and then it doesn't. But in terms of the shape of the story, it's more the writing. It's more that actually the practical writing of the words. It just isn't as interesting in Act 4 and 5 as it was in the first 3 acts, where just there's some sprinkled dust. And if it is just a different hand, I mean, he doesn't have to be dead, he just has to be busy. If somebody else wrote those bits and, that was just the division of labour, then hand B is not as exciting as hand A. And that's a bit of a shame, but again, would an audience notice at pace in performance with Vox? I don't know. Francis, you missed the middle of the play.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed reading Old Foster this session. And I agree with you. It kind of the play falls apart at the end with the king coming on and giving his royal blessing to everything. It seems to me the play's about the fleetingness of fortune and the fact that money in the hands of men leads to debt and ruin and fractured families, and it's best to put it into charitable institutions like a hospital, even though they degenerate into squalid whorehouses.
It's all fleeting. It's all why bother?
Yeah. But yeah, I really enjoyed today's session. Yeah, because I was reading Old Foster.
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say the ending falls apart. I mean, I think the problem with the ending is it's just thuddingly conventional. That's sort of my objection to it, is there's too much of it, and I've kind of seen it before, and I would like something a little more. We were talking the other day about the surprise element of, something's going along, and it's very conventional, but then there's something that's just a bit surprising, and there was nothing a bit surprising about that final scene. It did everything I was expecting it to do, and that's slightly disappointing. Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. And I think, what you've said about it is quite right, that cut it and telescope those two last scenes into each other and get it over with a lot faster. I agree that there's a problem that the two women seem more interesting than they're really allowed to be, especially the Mistress Foster. I think there's something could probably just be done with acting. I mean, there could be a moment, possibly just before the beginning of the prison scene or something, where she's, starting to sort of shake with rage and upset, and then suddenly stops and sort of thinks, hey, wait a minute, what am I so upset about? Everything's fine, or something like that. I mean, you could kind of demonstrate it just through performance, I think. And you might try the same thing with the wife, in other words, just through gesture, expression, and so on. It's hard to say, possibly even, with that line about with the wife, when Stephen says, are you vexed now? Then there could be a kind of double take, or, and then they both laugh and then they embrace, or I don't know, just something so that you see the point of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Sarah's point earlier, and I said this on our first session of just going, this happens all the time, is we have this great setup for female characters who then just disappear and just peter away, and it may just be that just don't trust the actors to get beyond a certain point of the day, and that's just something that keeps happening with boy players, rather than though in this case I think it's more they just went, the men, let's talk about the men. Because the play's really about the men. Because Jane is a lovely character, but there's not enough of her, and it's like all these characters are lovely, and that goes back to John's point about well, we could write some additional scenes for them, but can we successfully integrate them? As we've already sort of acknowledged that the end of the play isn't as well integrated to the rest of the play anyway, so a differently not very well integrated scene, but at least more enjoyable, maybe legitimate in that sense of being able to say, well, Rowley got up to Act 4, Scene 1. We're gonna rewrite the other guy, potentially, if that's what actually happened. It may not have done. He might just have decided to change his writing style. Lois again.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is the more you cut it, the less of a problem it is in a way, because everything will be happening more rapidly and more schematically. I even wondered if you could keep the doctor there, kind of chasing people around and silently admonishing them, and then looking really happy at the end as his point has been proved, or something, just to emphasize that it is so much about pattern. There are these two guys, there are these two women, happy, unhappy, rich, poor, all these things. And especially Robert's situation, where, as the king says, he kind of falls between two pillars. I think he says, you think of falling between two stools. Everybody's rejecting him. And then at the end, everybody loves him.
Yeah. That I was in my mind doubling the doctor and the keeper, but we could keep him going. He does suspiciously disappear about the time the keeper turns up, so I kind of feel that's probably what it's designed to do. Donald, any final thoughts?
Well, I was thinking what you were saying yesterday about alternative titles, and I was going to suggest Wonder Women, but I think that's already been done. There is a line I think it's in either the penultimate or the last scene, all debts are paid. I mean, that strikes me as being a perfect subtitle. Spirit of all's well that ends well. So maybe that would be your alternative subtitle. But I'm still no nearer to finding an alternative main title. So I don't know if anybody else has managed to come up.
Yes, all's well that ends well, of course, is that famous proverb as quoted in John Heywood's Proverbs in the 1540s. John, any final thoughts?
I kind of want to. I mean, I have to agree that that the main issue that comes up from the play is the beginning. I agree with I both agree and disagree with what Sarah said, in the sense that, yes, there's this, but I don't think it's a matter. I'm going to take the risk of saying I don't think it has anything to do with gender and how many female characters or male characters, and I don't think it has anything to do with the women being too interesting and then coming through. What I think that's wasted is at the beginning, it's not that we're presented with two interesting characters who then don't end up taking center stage, and they're there a lot. I think there are two. Well, I think what we're given is a conceit that ends up not actually, it's like the gun in the first scene that ends up just being taken off the wall and never fired. What I would have done, and I agree with Sarah, this notion that I would rewrite the play. But the way I would rewrite the play is I would expect us to have, wait, am I losing? I see everybody frozen.
No, we're still here.
We can hear you.
Okay. All right, good. So what I would have done is I would have rewritten the play, what I would have thought they were going to do. And I think that this idea was even in their head, because when the widow goes to marry Stephen, I mean, the notion, I'm sure I'm not the only one that had this idea, is that she was going to pull a Macbeth, where Macbeth he has a prophecy he's not going to die, so he could go and basically throw himself in front of the train, and the train's going to have to go off the tracks because it can't kill him, right? There's a prophecy. And so here she's going to marry this guy because she's going to basically tempt him, right? I can't be sad. Take this fate. Try to deal with that. And I thought that sort of, they were going to use that as a tool. Both of them could have actually used it as a tool, and it would be, is it possible to force, right, this rule to break, right? How far can they take it? And I thought that was going to be the engine, and I think that would be a much more interesting engine for the plot of this story. And then when they didn't use it, they had to basically stop giving us things like the ring and the fish, and they had to give us things where the only way that they were happy or unhappy was really just a matter of their own attitudes. But it didn't look like that was the way it was going to be at the beginning. So I think it was the wasted conceit, which makes the repeating of the title at the end a little dissatisfying. And the other thing is, when we say that there might be another writer at the end, and it certainly could be true. I haven't done a textual analysis, but I think there's a structural reason why that might be happening. It seems to me like it's like you're a writer, and then somebody comes to you from Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips and says, I want you to write a play about how we got to the magical founding of Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chip. So you have this story where you get to make the beginning all on your own, right? And the guy actually ends up in the undersea kingdom and the dealing with the fish. And at the end, though, you have to say, and then he built the first Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chip, and how that end is what you had to get to. has to fall flatter than the part of the story which you could make yourself about how you got there in the first place, I would think. So those are my two things.
Yes, I could make a statement now about a historical king and references to Hollingshed, but no, I'm going to do that. Okay. Rachel, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that it's a well-structured play, and I share Sarah's concern about what happens to the mistress and widow over the course of the play. And I'm curious about the delivery of the widow, now wife's lines when she's at the end, whether she's really not vexed. I mean, I think it'd be possible for an actor to have her be quite vexed, because she's in the position now that the mistress was in at the beginning of the play, and her fortune that she's brought as a widow into this second marriage has been taken over by this spendthrift family. And there's that line where she says, take a third of, she's going to have a third of her fortune redistributed to the brother's family. It's like, oh, no, take half then. It's like, you're going to take a third, take half. She's lost, as a widow, she's lost control over the fortune that she brought. And I think that she might be vexed, despite what I think the tone might be contrary to the content of the lines, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I would argue actually that the widow's been vexed throughout the entire play. She's constantly vexed. She's just not been vexed. It's very irritating to be vexed about not being vexed. So I'd argue she is the most vexed of all the vexedness of the thing. Everybody's vexed. They're just vexed for the wrong reason because they're not vexed. Sorry, I'm playing terrible semantic games. I do agree with your point actually. Aliki, final thoughts as well as whatever your response is.
I mean, I'm sort of trying to make the conceit at the beginning be that what she really wanted was to lose some money, that it was about the rich man and the eye of the needle and all of that, so that actually now that he has spent her money, however on good causes, she gets both a good husband who is a good man and what she wanted at the beginning, which is some loss of fortune to bewail. But we would have to do a bit of rewriting for that, I think. There's only so much you can do with acting. I'm going to go back to what I said at first, which is that I think one of the charms of this little plot is that it's entirely accessible pretty much to a modern audience. And there's a lot you can do with that. If you take out your salami slicer and strip out, the long, boring speeches about virtue and sentiment and charity and pretty much all the charity stuff, really. And just use it as a sort of a schematic that's fun to play with. I think you could have a great deal of fun with this.
I think the play has got give for play. I mean, that's what I quite liked about it early on. The play I was talking about was very much about actor games and making this family dynamic function. I think in the second half that's even more important when the text becomes a little more shiny and slip-offable. And that detailed work would be really helpful because it then gives you solid motivations for the second half, which hopefully you do at such a fast pace no one's paying attention to how slippery and shiny everybody becomes. Eric, while you're still here, do you have any final thoughts?
I know that we all sort of are kind of unsatisfied with the ending of the play, but there's a part of me going, how about we do it at pace and see how it lands? Because at pace it would be very different. Because we wouldn't be, well, as you would usually say, stopping and starting changes the whole dynamic of like the thrust of the play. We probably would forget what happens in the first act by the end of by the end of Act 3 or something. So I don't know.
And as ever, we've been in this situation before where, we say, this bit can't work, it doesn't make any sense, and then we actually do it uncut, and it sort of goes, oh no, it sort of does, it's sort of fine. That's not always true, I should point out. Sometimes it's actually, no, it just doesn't work because it doesn't work. I suspect to say, for an audience with a well-acted production, most of these problems are not there. I think we are in the position to be really picky. And partly that's just disappointment because the beginning was so much stronger than the ending. But the ending is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. As I say, it's conventionality, which is my objection. Be more original. Mark, any final thoughts?
I only experienced the part of the play that disappointed everybody. So yeah, I'll just speak to the part of the play that I've read, that I've been a part of today, which the first scene I was enjoying quite a bit reading Stephen as he goes from, it seems to have the change of heart on stage. In the last scene of the play, he makes some reference when he's like kind of wrapping everything up, where he's like, the entire time I actually approved of everybody, but I've been putting on this mask. That made it a little unclear to me when he is supposed to have had this, like whether he's even had a change of heart, or if the play is telling us at the end that it's like, nope, that whole time that he was yelling about, not helping his brother and all that, like even before what we read for this session, so yeah, I think what I would be, I found it less interesting once not only he told the audience, like he told both the audience and his wife that like I'm just testing him now. And I know that's a common thing and it can work, but I think it's that happens too early, it feels to me. And Rob, you were saying something about like the lack of like surprise later in the play. The play, that's one of the ways in which the play undercuts any sense of surprise, is by just telling us and everybody and just being like, they told us very early in the play, like, it's all gonna work out. There's no more conflict anymore except me vexing my brother. So I would be interested if we're talking about, rearranging and adding things to the play and significantly altering it, that would be an area that I would be interested to see what we can come up with, because it could even intersect with, if he doesn't tell his wife, then maybe that's something that vexes her. And that can be the seed for her having a big moment that y'all were talking about, maybe fitting in with the earlier bits of the play to come to fruition.
Yeah, no, I really like that, because we were talking, initially of going, oh, is this a test? Oh, it doesn't seem to be a test. Oh, no, it's clearly he's just told us it's a test. I think, yeah, there is some mileage there. That it creates a different level of uncertainty. And yeah, may create a slightly different route for the wife in that situation as well. I like that. That might be something to test. That's a workshop, isn't it? Well, we have run out of time. We're way past time. So that is that for this particular session. You can always join us for future sessions. There are sign-up forms always on the website. You can join us. Anyone can sign up. There's no selection process. Just come along and read, or just watch along. You saw people popping in and out who weren't down to read, but were here anyway. So it's proof they do exist. So you too can be one of those invisible people or visible people, entirely dependent on what you would like to do. All that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all the wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. It makes me loose.